Okay, so I don't know whether to cry or smile and be happy because my forensic man, Mr. Connell, and John Ferrugia, whom I hooked up, let's see, I mean, at least 6 weeks ago, I'd say. They are now meeting as I speak. I just called them and they were actually pulling up together at a home. Um, John Ferrugia, the reporter, we actually have never met face to face, and I've not even really seen him do any active work on TV. I haven't even seen him do. I went and looked at a clip the other day, but I just know that I called him 6 weeks ago, and he has been doing research on these homes that, like mine, that have high potential probabilities that they're still contaminated, um, and other people. There's people living in them. So, long story short, the good news is bad news is a home was probably going to be found contaminated with meth. That the good news is at least they'll find out, and it'll build the story because my story's a good one. 62 pages. A lot of them may not involve the state regulator allowing fraudulent reports to come through, which is also a kicker on my story. But we're compiling. We want to show the public that it is very easy to move into a home that's highly contaminated and not know. Highly contaminated with methamphetamines because it was a previous meth lab. Now, take the state regulator who's fraudulent out of the picture with some of these houses. Because most people, if they got, like I did, everybody involved, the cleaners, the testers, the city, saying that, oh, your home is definitely clean. Gene Hook at the city said, Department of Environmental Health specifically said, oh, your home is clean. He read me the results, yada, yada, yada. Of course, at the time I didn't exactly know what all that meant. Most people would take that like a grain of salt, like, okay, cool. Well, most people wouldn't have called the state regulator, had her come. Most people might not have accidentally, well, spent as much time as I did crying and making phone calls and found an angel called Mr. Connell, who's a police officer, international orator on toxicology. He trains police officers, and so, uh, but let's just say we have Mr. Connell and John Ferrugia meeting at this home X in Denver County, and they are now testing this home because it's more than likely it's one of the homes that are um, it's probably going to stop at the level of final testers before they turn it into the city saying it's okay. Or actually, this particular one is actually it doesn't even have paperwork. This particular one they're meeting at to test. They've got people living in it, and it doesn't have a trail of paperwork that was even cleaned. So we've got several issues. People are allowing people to move into homes without telling them. The city doesn't do anything about it. Knowing that the home was busted, they don't do any. You know, if a owner say takes off all the warning stickers saying only trained people can come in the house, and they just rent it out, uh, who's going to come back and tell them, oh, shame on you? Uh, you're not supposed to be moving people in here. The answer is no one. No one. Now, I think that's the case that they're meeting on right now, and Mr. Connell's testing the home right now. Then there's going to be cases where the owner gets the testers, the mitigators to clean, and testers test it just fine. They send it to the city. The city gives a decision statement, which Basically allows them to either rent or sell the home without saying anything. They have to sign a lead, asbestos. They don't have to say anything about meth. Now, what happens then, though, if that final tester that goes into the city and turns those tests in as okay is not an appropriate industrial hygienist, and they don't really know how to do their job right? Nothing happens. That's exactly it. Nothing will happen. I'll make another video about this element, but the city doesn't read it. They just file it away. Nothing happens. So they're fraudulent, whatever. I could go in. A 9-year-old could go in. As long as they sign saying that they believe they're okay, it's fine. Now, then there's other cases like mine where not only have I single-handedly proven that there is, now not every owner is going to be part of this, but my owner was fraudulent, the property manager, the first testers, industrial hygienists, the mitigators didn't do their job, admittedly. The final testers blatantly all lied, and the state regulator allowed the fraud to happen. Now you think someone's going to do something about that house that I was in, right? You would think so. No, nothing happens. Here's why. They don't read the report. They look at the signature saying that you feel you're certified to have done the testing. They file it away. Then I've got my forensic report from my international orator, part author of the actual part of the statutes regarding decontamination, police officer trainer. His list of credentials goes on, and his heart and his wife, her heart, they are absolutely angels. They're a couple of my few angels here. His report is 62 pages long. Again, they do not read it. All they do, it's basically sitting in a file in the same hole that the other one is in. It doesn't matter how many reports and what they say, they're all sitting right there in the same spot. Now, surely they haven't, I know that the people in my old home on 4893 South Johnson Street in Littleton, but it's Denver County. I know that home has been worked on like busy bee, because they were only told to replace the upstairs carpet, and that's what they did. We've been eyeballing to see if they have been trying to rent it or sell it. We may not get that in the story yet. They might be just laying low for a little while. But if they wanted to today, they could rent it out. I mean, I don't look at the Craigslist ads every day, and they might be trying to rent it some other way. I've got neighbors watching. I have painstakingly went the 30-minute drive there many times over the course of these weeks. I've been out of the home for a couple months now, just to make sure no one is living in the home. I've got neighbors watching too to call me. But ask me, who is going to stop them from moving someone into that contaminated house that we were in for 3 months, getting sick? No one. That's the answer. You'd think if I myself called the city and told them I have forensic proof that that home is contaminated, that they would be required to make a phone call? No. That they'd be required to slap fines on these fraudulent people? No. They're authorized. They are part of the governing body. Per the statutes, when it comes to meth homes, there's a governing body. Gene Hook over at the Department of Environmental Health. Well, it just says Department of Environmental Health. The building code people, and then the local police folks. They have authorization to do things like that, which would be great and beneficial for the city and for the people of the people's health of the city, but also monetarily of the city, right? They don't do that. So if nobody's what they're required to do at the city was this quote from Gene Hook, quote from Bill Bennerman, who was stand-in boss at the time I talked to him, quote from Celia, can't think of her last name offhand, who's a boss over them. They only have 2 jobs to do, and they're only required to do 2 things: accept a report, acknowledge acceptance. That's it. So even when I get state regulator Colleen Brisnehan, the fraud, fired, because there's more than one issue. Mr. Connell told me about some other things. That's how I found out she had a private organization with my final industrial hygienist on her membership deal. And the first preliminary assessors are actually a board member. And a lawyer she immediately sent me to is the trademark Timothy Gobble Hayes, who took all my information happily. And, you know, I was happy to tell him exactly what everybody did wrong, but it's kind of interesting how it seems like a little conflict of interest in my brain for him to have heard everything that I had to say about suing everybody involved, yada, 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 and then turn around and say, I'm not going to represent you. Well, he was the one that signed up as the trademark name for this fringe group of hygienists called CAMP, something meth and mold professionals. I'll talk more about that later. So it's kind of interesting how this private organization has all these fraudulent industrial hygienists. I mean, it's amazing. The city, when they told me my home was safe when I was investigating, you know, I told them I felt like they encapsulated, which means paint over instead of cleaning the walls. Because if you're contaminated up to a certain level, yes, they have to level the house. But if it's, I don't want to say clean enough, if it's not as contaminated as it could be, they do allow them to clean it. But I feared encapsulation. I feared that, you know, there wasn't new carpet like I was told upstairs. Gene Hook telling me, oh, everything's safe, reading me the numbers. Well, gee, out of all my concern, he failed to notice there was a missing police report. Per statute, a police report has to be involved in the very beginning preliminary assessment by the first industrial hygienist before anything's done. The missing detailed cleaning report that there has to be before the last test is done. And the full preliminary assessment, which wasn't even done right to begin with, from Gobble Hayes, who's a national company, by the way. We'll have another video on that. But the full preliminary assessment, the police report, the detailed cleaning list, these are supposed to be in the hands of the final tester to begin with. Not there because there wasn't a detailed cleaning list made, because there wasn't a detailed cleaning made, period. I'm the one who got the police report put into the file because I asked Colleen Brisnehan to get it for me. I'm the one who gave the full preliminary assessment to Colleen and Quest Environmental Systems and Technologies, Bob Woellner, just to drop a name. He's the final industrial hygienist who's the fraud, and I'm happy to say so. He's supposed to have all these things: preliminary assessment, detailed cleaning report, police report, nothing. I'm the one who gave him his first preliminary assessment the day they came to retest my home. That's not supposed to be the case. You're not supposed to have regular lay people, mothers who are busy trying to have a life, be the ones to give you the preliminary assessment. That's not how it works, folks. So, good news is a house, another home, is getting tested to prove a chain of events, to prove your sister, your mother, your grandmother, you yourself, a new mothers with babies that need fresh air to breathe, that are out there looking for a home to buy or a home to rent, could all equally get screwed over and highly intoxicated by these fraudulent people. So it stands to reason that everybody in the state of Colorado has a stake in this. The Colorado Board of Realtors should be giving a shit about this. The mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, everyone should care about this, because if the state is not allowed to hold a meth list after a home is properly decontaminated, then how the hell are you going to find out? unless 3 months in, 2 years later, 5 years later, after many trips with your children to the emergency room, someone happens to put in your brain, maybe you should get a meth test on your house. Well, what are the chances of that? I mean, who the hell thinks of testing their home for meth? I know I didn't. They make you sign a lead and asbestos when